Today we're kicking off a new and exciting series. I'm going to be scaping a series of nano little aquariums and terrariums, and today we're jump-starting the series with a little Aqua Worx Iota. This is a teeny tiny little terrarium that I'm actually creating for the background of my San Diego Buce Plant YouTube channel set. So I want to give a huge shout out to Buce Plant for providing the materials in today's video. Now let's get started with taking a look at some of the equipment we're going to be using. So the Aqua Worx Iota comes in two different sizes. There's a short one and there's a tall one. Today, I'm going to be scaping the short one, and it's going to sit really nicely on the AquaWorx SOL. So the AquaWorx SOL is a puck light, it's magnetic, and you could attach it to a shelf with an adhesive magnet, or you could also grab the little stand and base manufactured by AquaWorx, and that's what I'm working with today. So to put that together is super easy. There's three little screws that attach the neck to the base, and then the puck itself, the light, it attaches via a magnet, which is actually really strong, but still easy enough to adjust. And then it's powered by USB-C to USB, which plugs directly into your wall, or if you have a power strip with a USB slot, you can power it that way. So with the light and base assembled, it's time to get started with the scape. So these tiny little terrariums are always really challenging. You really want to take your time with these, and less is more because they're so tiny. It's also going to be really important for me to establish a sense of scale, and in such a tiny landscape like this, I'll have to do that very carefully. So the first step is to add some soil to the back, and I know I want to have a cosmetic sand foreground, so I'm going to add in a little bit of UNS Controsoil to support the hardscape, and then I'm going to sort of move it over to the back. Take your time with this, and don't be afraid to even grab the terrarium and kind of lean it back to shift the bulk of the soil towards the back of the glass. Next up, we're gonna get some hardscape in there. And to establish that sense of scale, I wanna use hardscape that has a lot of fine texture. And for this, I'm using some maple leaf stone. Maple leaf stone is one of my favorite hardscapes on the market. It's super light, it's easy to work with, and what makes it perfect for this is that fine texture. It even has cool little calcium veins that tend to meander through the hardscape. So I'm gonna put this into place, and later on, we'll add some more. But for now, I want to get my cosmetic sand foreground into the terrarium to sort of get my bearings and see how much space we have to work with for planting. So I'm very delicately pouring in some UNS Controsand Bora. This is one of my favorite cosmetic sands. It's got a lot of personality. It's got lots of nuance to the colors of the grains of sand, so it doesn't have that artificial look to it, in my opinion. With that in place, we're going to kind of smooth things out and try and keep the front of the glass as shallow as possible. Next up, I'm going to add some more supporting rocks. This is going to help prevent the soil from moving forward onto that cosmetic sand base, but I'm also going to manually remove any sort of little grains of aqua soil that get there. Do a little bit of work like this up front and then secure your barrier, and things should be good moving forward. With those supporting stones in place, it's time to get to planting, and I'm going to keep it super simple in this little terrarium. I'm going to be working with a UNS tissue culture, Juncus repens. I love this plant because it has a beautiful green grassy look, and it's a much thicker blade than an Eleocharis, so it'll sort of give a nice tall background that I can also trim and shape however I like, and it will eventually grow really dense and will be easy enough to control in this little terrarium. So I'm going to start on the right side, and you want to use really fine pin sets with this because there's not going to be a ton of space to work with, and you also want to be really delicate. The last thing you want to do is disturb your hardscape or pour soil over into the front, so I'm being very careful, and anytime the plant is resisting going into the soil, I'm just using one of my fingers to kind of give it a little pressure while I pull the pin sets out. Then I made my way over to the middle and left sides of the terrarium to complete the planting, and I'm happy to say that things are already popping. I love the way the green contrasts against the orange maple leaf stone. So with the planting complete, let's add some details to that cosmetic sand foreground. This is going to help further establish the sense of scale. Why? Well, every time you add a new size and texture, you're creating these relationships between your hardscape elements. The more relationships you have, the more of a sense of scale and the more intrigue you'll have to your layout. So I'm adding teeny tiny little pieces of maple leaf stone that I actually created years ago by crushing up larger pieces. So with that in place, it's time to give the plants a nice spray, and for your first spray, you want to be really generous. You want sort of legs of water to creep down into the soil, but you don't want it to be absolutely soaked, that's a recipe for mold and potentially rotting plants. So with that in place, it's time to cap the terrarium and get it over to its position on the Buce Plant set. And I'm happy to say that while this little terrarium is super simple, I think it really pops very nicely in my studio space, and it's gonna be a nice little addition to the Buce Plant set. So if you haven't checked out any of those videos, go ahead and just search Buce Plant on YouTube. And if you like these types of build videos from me and you want to see the rest of my little nanoscapes in this series, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. We're going to be working with one of these tall iotas coming up next, and I also have lots of tiny little UNS shallow scapes that I think are going to be really fun to scape because I've never done anything like that. So let me know down below in the comments what you think of this little terrarium, and I'll catch you guys and gals next time. Bye-bye.